Hello, fellow students. This week we're looking at George Marsden and his book, The Outrageous Idea of Christian Scholarship. George Marsden has been a prolific historian, a Christian scholar, one of the most important ones, arguably. Dr. Schultz talks about him in an early video we watched this year and talks about this writing and about that he is now retired. He's written in several different areas. One is the highlight is fundamentalism. He wrote an important book, Fundamentalism in American Culture, and has also written on fundamentalism compared with English evangelicalism and articles, one article in particular, as fundamentalism as an American phenomenon, a comparison to English evangelicalism. Marsden has also been an important historical commentator, very influential for this. His book, that's the precursor to this one that we read this semester, was On the Soul of the American University. This is referenced in his video with Dr. Sam Smith on the implications or the interpretive trends in history. And this is very important. He makes the point that colleges used to have a Christian founding, but have moved away from that to secularism, which brings us really to talk about the book that we read this semester, The Outrageous Idea of Christian Scholarship. I think this book had several contributions important to us and as folks in the field of history, especially in academia. The first, I believe, was his talk about multiculturalism. He talks about everyone has a seat at the table, it seems. It's a pluralistic setting unless you have religious views, especially Christian views. He talks about how the gender, class, LGBTQ, race, these are all topics that are talked about. Marxism has a seat at the table, but not Christianity. Even when scholars of African American descent are welcomed into academia, they're told to leave their religion at the door. Many think that Christian views should not be welcomed because they will take over. They'll have some sort of imperialism, but he argues the only imperialism is really the imperialism of secularism. He also talks about that the views of religion and Christianity should have a seat at the table. It should be more of a pluralistic type venture, but unfortunately it is not, and secularism wins the day. He talks about in chapter 4 and 5, finally, how this really works itself out. In chapter 4, he talks about that a Christian scholar or religious scholar can have similar views to one that's non-religious, but the main things are having that worldview in the background and also the implications of questions that are asked and how those work themselves out. In chapter 5, he gives some specific examples and shows how a theological context, theological viewpoints can impact scholarship, and he gives some specific way from a Christian framework how this can work itself out. He talks about 4 things specifically. He talks about creation, incarnation, the present state of man, or as he says, the human condition and the Holy Spirit. These are things Christian scholars can work out in their writings in a scholarly fashion and can be extremely helpful. In sum, this book has been great. I've really appreciated it. I hope you all have, and he gives us really good ideas of how to be not only a scholar, but a Christian scholar in the current system. Thank you for listening.